Nobody wanted to sit next to her. At least that's what the man said, loud enough for half the gala to hear. He was standing there with a glass of whiskey surrounded by people who laughed a little too eagerly, and he smirked as if the insult was clever. "No one wants to sit next to a fat black woman in a dress like that," he sneered. What he didn't realize was that the very woman he was mocking, his ex-wife of all people, was standing just a few feet behind him, clutching her purse, trying to decide whether to walk away or walk straight through the fire. Her name was Camille Harris. She lived on the Upper East Side with her twins, Ava and Jordan. From the outside, she looked like she had it all: a nice apartment with high ceilings and clean modern lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, looking over the city lights, the kind of place people whisper about when they ride the elevator up. But behind the polished glass, she carried years of betrayal and hurt. An ex-husband who had left her for someone younger, someone thinner, someone who knew how to weaponize a smile. And yet Camille had built something in the shadows he never knew about. Late at night, after putting the twins to bed, she worked on a nonprofit called Rise Up Education. She started it from her kitchen table, wiring donations to schools in rural Mississippi and villages in Ghana. She didn't tell her husband back then. She was afraid he'd mock it, or worse, claim it as his idea. And now here she was, staring into a mirror before the biggest night of her life, a red silk gown hugging every curve, her heart racing because the board had made it clear if she didn't show up at tonight's gala, a $5 million grant would vanish, and so would the chance to keep those schools alive. She was still adjusting the straps of her dress when the front door clicked open. Heavy footsteps. A woman's laugh that sounded like nails dragging across glass. Then came Marcus, her ex-husband, looking sharp in a tailored suit. Blonde hair slicked back, blue eyes glinting with the same arrogance that once charmed her. And right beside him, his new partner, Sabrina, a willowy blonde with a voice like sugar gone sour. Marcus leaned in the doorway, eyes sweeping over Camille. "You think you belong at a place like the Waldorf in that dress," he said, lips curling. "Why embarrass yourself?" Sabrina let out a little laugh, brushing her arm against his sleeve. "Oh, Marcus, don't be cruel," she cooed before turning to Camille with a smirk. "But he's right. You don't quite fit the part. This," she looped her arm tighter around him, "is who he needs tonight. Someone who belongs." Camille's throat burned her chest tight. She thought of all the nights she had carried twins on her hip, all the sacrifices the body that bore children. The same body they now used as a punchline. She wanted to scream, but the memory of that email echoed. "Your attendance is critical. Absence may result in revocation of grant." Hundreds of kids, their futures depended on her walking into that ballroom. Marcus tilted his head, eyes flashing with cruel delight. "Stay home, Camille. Do what you're good at, cleaning up after the kids." Sabrina giggled on cue, her nails grazing his arm like applause. Something broke loose inside her then. She straightened her curls, framing her face, her dark eyes no longer soft. She reached for her clutch heels, clicking against the hardwood. "I'm going," she said. Her voice was low, but sharp enough to cut. Marcus's jaw tightened, his face red with fury, but he didn't stop her. By the time she reached her office at Rise Up, her hands were trembling. Posters of smiling schoolchildren lined the walls, little thank you letters taped near her desk. She pressed her forehead against one. "Thank you for my books, Miss Camille," and tried not to break. That's when her best friend Nadia burst in. Short hair, sharp suit, always blunt as a blade. "You look like hell," Nadia said, setting down 2 coffees. "What happened?" Camille told her everything. The laughter, the insult, the way Sabrina clung to Marcus like she'd won some prize. Nadia's jaw tightened. That bastard has chipped away at you long enough. Tonight isn't about him. It's about this. She pointed at the poster of the Ghana school. If you don't show up, those kids lose, and so do you. Nadia wasn't finished. She introduced someone new, Daniel Brooks, a quiet but well-connected donor who had been supporting Rise Up behind the scenes. Tall, broad-shouldered hazel eyes that carried warmth instead of pity. He extended a hand. "Miss Harris," he said softly, "your work speaks louder than any insult. If you'll let me, I'll stand by you tonight. Not as a savior, just as someone who believes in what you've built." Camille hesitated, then nodded. The thought of walking into that ballroom alone made her stomach turn, but with Nadia's fire and Daniel's steady presence, it felt just possible. By evening, they slipped into the Waldorf side lobby to avoid the grand entrance. The ballroom glittered just beyond the doors, crystal chandeliers, laughter ringing like polished knives. And then she heard it. Marcus's voice. He was holding court, a circle of tuxedos and gowns hanging on his every word. "Told her to stay home," he drawled. "Nobody wants to sit next to a frumpy black cow in a gown. She's ballooned since the twins." Laughter erupted around him. Sabrina giggled louder than anyone, her eyes scanning for approval. Camille froze in the shadows, every muscle burning. Nadia's hand squeezed her arm. "Use this," she whispered. Daniel leaned closer. "You've got this." For a moment, Camille saw him for what he really was, not a man, but a small king on a crumbling throne propped up by cruelty. And then, the voice of the host thundered over the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor a visionary who has transformed education worldwide. Please welcome the founder of Rise Up Education, Camille Harris." The ballroom gasped. All eyes swung toward the side lobby as Camille stepped forward, her red gown shimmering like fire, her heels striking marble like a drumbeat. Marcus froze mid-sip, his glass trembling. Sabrina's giggle died in her throat. The crowd parted as if instinctively, whispers turning to awe. She walked past him without a glance, her silence louder than any retort, and climbed the stage. Her hands steadied on the podium, her dark eyes sweeping the room. "Education," she began, her voice clear, "is the tool that breaks chains. It's what tells a child they are more than their scars, more than the lies people throw at them." She paused, the room holding its breath. "I've been mocked, diminished, told I don't belong. But I rose because education taught me my worth, and Rise Up exists to teach that to every child who dares to dream." Applause swelled, first scattered, then roaring, shaking the chandeliers. People rose to their feet. Some wiped tears. Others shouted yes across the room. Marcus tried to smile to laugh it off, but no one was looking at him anymore. He was invisible. Daniel stepped onto the stage, offering his hand. Camille took it. Their fingers intertwined, and the crowd erupted again, cameras flashing. Nadia stood off to the side, eyes blazing with pride. That night shifted everything. Within weeks, headlines praised Camille as the hidden force behind Rise Up. Clips of her speech flooded social media, donations poured in, and Marcus, his career collapsed. Colleagues distanced themselves, invitations dried up, and Sabrina disappeared as quickly as she'd arrived. 6 months later, under the blazing Ghanaian sun, Camille cut the ribbon on a brand new school. Children in bright uniforms ran across the dusty field, clutching notebooks and laughing. Daniel stood beside her, Nadia snapping photos with tears in her eyes. Camille knelt to hug a little girl who whispered, "Is this really for us?" And she said, "Yes, sweetheart. This is for you to grow, to dream, to change the world." From a distance, Camille spotted a familiar figure, Marcus, rumpled, suit eyes hollow, watching her like a ghost. For a second, the old pain flickered, but she turned away, choosing the sound of children's laughter over his regret. The drums beat louder, the ribbon fell, and Camille felt it, the weight lift. She was no longer the woman who trembled before a mirror. She was a force reborn in fire and dignity. Now let me ask you, what part of this story struck you most? Was it Marcus's downfall or Camille's rise? Was it the way society laughed with him until the truth stood center stage? Or was it the reminder that too many people still think worth is measured by body, by skin, by what fits neatly into their world? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you stand. Because stories like this aren't just about one woman, they're about all of us deciding who gets to define our worth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation.